Yeah, it's in the in the Torah under the prophet, not in the books that we're reading.
Well, so we haven't gotten to Hosea yet in Heschel.
No, yeah, I'm sort of reading
ahead.
ahead.
Great. No, that's great. Good pitch for our Heschel class on
Yes.
Wednesdays at noon. By the way,
Yeah, I'm
you'll
so
find out
surprised
why
when
it
I
is
read
important
that.
to know that Hosea did in fact marry a harlot.
He did get me out.
Good. Well, it's great to have you guys here. I'm just gonna again make sure all our streaming stuff is working.
Hey, Myra.
Okay.
Well, hey, Jerry. Yeah.
All right, I think we're in good place here, and
Hey,
I think
Julie.
we should all tell Cantor Lauren what I said to her, and I completely felt this last week. It is no fun without her. Last week's service with no Lauren was just no fun. It was dry, it just was missing something, and having you back is just such a great thing. And your timing could not be better, because certainly this Shabbat, I'm sure we're all kind of coming in a little frazzled. It's been a little bit of a,
say the least.
right, to say the least, a little frazzled, perhaps some of us a little exhausted from some late nights, and certainly all sorts of emotional feelings running through. And if you know your rabbi at all, you'll know that in a certain amount of time, you might have a few things to say about a few things. But for now, Laura and I were just talking about the fact that it's nice. Shabbat is also a chance to sometimes to get away a little bit. I'm one of these believers that if you try to hermetically seal yourself off from the rest of the world on Shabbat, that doesn't quite work. But it's also nice to be able to balance out some of the anxieties with some of the beautiful liturgy, some of the beautiful music, some of what I think equally important, perhaps most important piece of the contemplating part, right? The thinking part, the feeling part, right? What is tefillah about? It's about opening us up. So let's all try to do this as best as we can tonight. And even though I'm about to mute you all, which sort of seems to go counter to what I just said, for the sake of hearing Cantor Lauren, I will do so. But really, all of us are coming into the Shabbat in different kinds of places, different mindsets, different states of exhaustion and frustration. But here we are a community, and here we're going to gather together and daven with all of our heart. And I think it's something I can only speak for myself. I desperately need right now. So we're going to turn over to, I think we do candle blessings first. It's been a while again. And then we'll turn it over to Lauren to give us a little bit of an opening. So first, I'm just going to mute everybody. I'm going to make Lauren a co-host, which I forgot to do. Okay, good. And we'll spotlight me. Let's see me here. If you have candles at home and you'd like to join me, you are more than welcome to do so. We're on page 120. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Amen. And now we'll turn it over to Cantor Lauren, who will help warm us up a little bit and get us singing. So, Cantor Lauren, all you. We'll turn now to page 130 as we begin Kabbalat Shabbat together at the very top of the page. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, ladonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, ladonai. Naria, Naria, letzur yishenu, nekadma fana vetodaha. Naria, Naria, letzur yishenu, bizmirot naria lo. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, ladonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, ladonai. We'll turn it back to Cantor Lauren as we turn to page 131, Shiru Ladonai.
I will sing unto God a new song. Sing unto God and we'll all sing along. All the earth a new song unto God. Shiru Ladonai kol haaretz. Shiru Ladonai shir chadash.
And we'll turn now to page 132, the very bottom of the page, Or Zarua. Or Zarua latzadik, ule Yisrael simcha. 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 We'll turn it back to Cantor Lauren as we turn to page 134.
Zamru Ladonai bechilor bechol zimra. Zamru Ladonai bechilor bechol zimra. Zamru Ladonai bechilor bechilor bechol zimra. Zamru Ladonai bechilor bechilor
Turn now to page 135, Romamu.
Romamu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishachavu lehar rocho. Romamu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishachavu lehar rocho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishachavu lehar rocho.
We'll turn now to page 138 for L'chadodi, and just a reminder that we'll do the first, second, fifth, and ninth paragraphs. L'chadodi likrat kala penei Shabbat nekabela. 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 Shamor vezachor bedibur echad. Ishmianu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad, u'shemo echad, l'shemu tiferet ve'litila. L'chadodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. L'chadodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki hi mekor haberacha, merosh mikedem nesucha, sof maaseh b'machshava tchila. L'chadodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. L'chadodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Hitoreri, ki va'orech u'miuri, uri, shir daberi, kevod Adonai alayich nigla. L'chadodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. L'chadodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Bohi v'shalom ateret bala, gam b'simcha u'v'tzola, toch emunei am sekula. Boi chala, boi chala. L'chadodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. L'chadodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. And we'll turn it back to Cantor Lauren as we do Tzadik Katamar on page 140, where the Hebrew indents just in the middle of the page.
Tzadik Katamar yifrach kerez balvanon yizkeh. 'Shetu יפריחו. עוד ינון בשיבה, דשנים ורעננים יהיו. להגיר כי ישר אדוני צורי מלוא עוולתו בו.
We turn now to page 144 for the Chatzi Kaddish.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בלמד יברח יותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי כל בית ישראל. בגלה ובזמן קריב, ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם עולמי עלמיה יתברך. יתברך וישבח, מתפאר ודרמה וינשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי קודשא בריחו, לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תמירה מעלמה, ויאמרו amen.
We turn now to page 146 for the Baruch Hu.
Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam ha'ed, le'olam ha'ed. Yai, 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 yai,
We'll turn now to page 149 and we'll read together the second reading at the bottom of the page together in English. This is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over?
ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו, אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, המריב הרבים. אהבת עולם בית ישראל, עמך אתה. תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו למדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו, בשוכנו וקומנו, נשיח בכוחך, ונשמח בדברי תורתך, ובמצוותיך. יסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
And on page 154. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך ובביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם emet. Let's read together on the top of page 157. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt. There is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. As we turn to page 158 and back to Cantor Lauren. Turn now to page 161 at the top of the page, Hashkivenu.
Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storm. Let there be love and understanding among Hashkivenu, Adonai Eloheinu, Hashkivenu, Leshalom. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storm.
We'll turn now to page 162, the very top of the page. Veshamru b'nei Israel et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam Ain beheini uvein bnei Israel oti leolam ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz Uvayom hashevim Shabbat Shabbat v'inafrash. In a moment, we'll begin the Amidah together. Cantor Lauren will help us to start out on page 164, and then we'll continue silently. And again, it's your choice whether to be standing or sitting. But please, as always, go at your own pace, and we'll make sure to try to give as much space as possible, especially tonight, for everyone to have a little bit of time of private prayer and reflection. And so don't feel rushed or anything of that nature. So as I said, we'll turn it over to Cantor Lauren, and then after we begin on page 164, we'll continue silently.
Adonai, Sarfatari Tifta, Ufi Agi, Tilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Ay, 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 ay. Shalom,
turn to page 371, our thoughts turn to those connected to our community, in our community, that are in need of healing. And as I'm about to read a list of those that we are aware of, I also invite anyone who's on the Zoom tonight who have names that we have not shared, if you feel comfortable to share them in the chat, or simply to hold them in your heart. So as I said, in our community and connected to our community, we're thinking tonight of Betty Borsuk, Stu Pollack, Harav Yaakov Tzvi Ben Liba, Mordechai Yaakov Ben Malka Rivka, Jane London, Phyllis Silver, Catherine Guarino, Emunah Chava, Sandra Furman, Morty Lynn, Phyllis Katz, Raina Walsh, Deirdre Klein, Stephanie Skit, Nancy DeMate, Jean Ben Sadoun, Gloria Taradash, Judy Stern, Miriam Kornfeld, Roz Brody, Hannah Ruth Batzara, Marlise Silverberg, Louis Davidson, Susan Spruce, Fagel Tzipora Bat Elisheva Bat Sarah, Richard Gambino, Michelle Sawicki, Idol Basha Bat Yitzchak, Tzvi Menachem Ben Chaim, Rivka Bat Devora, Amy and Gavin Tucker, Janice Kurz, David Dowling, Neil Elliott and Eileen Rosen, Israel Ben Yitzchak, Ben Sion Ben Moshe, Lorraine Danis, Buddy Kassoff, Shelley Newmark, David Kyle Klopman, Rivka Bat Rachel, Sarah Bat Chana, Moshe Eliezer Ben Sivia, Peretz Ben Yehuda, and Leah Bat Naomi. As I said, if there's anyone that you choose to share, you can certainly share in the chat or hold in your hearts as we turn back to Cantor Lauren to lead us in the Misha Berach, again on page 371.
Before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen.
Thank you, Cantor Lauren. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. So certainly this is a unique Shabbat, perhaps in history in some ways. Many things that are still ongoing. I imagine there are at least a few of you who are keeping one eye on our service tonight and one eye on your phones or your websites. And this is the one time where I will say, well, actually, no, probably more than one time, but one time where I can tell you that you have permission to do so. I understand it. I'm fighting every instinct to do the same. And certainly it would have been strange to try to say something tonight or to teach something tonight that was disconnected from that reality. And I don't think that this will be the last time there is something to say, but there's been something that certainly has been on my mind this week, especially, and it crystallized for me this morning in our class that I teach on Pirkei Avot, on this collection of wisdom and of I think actually sort of fundamental core ideas that consists of sections of the Mishnah that really are unique in some ways, even within Judaism, within our various kinds of sacred literature. And it gets to, I think, the heart of one of the things that has been the most challenging for me, and I'm sure for all of us, that's been playing out. And I want to try to teach this. It might take a second to kind of get to my ultimate point, but I hope you can stick with me. So this particular section of Pirkei Avot comes from the 4th chapter, the 13th Mishnah, which is the small m Mishnah, the little sort of paragraphs or thoughts. And the teaching comes from Rabbi Shimon. So Rabbi Shimon Omer, Shlosha Ketarim Hem, that there are 3 kinds of crowns. Keter Torah, the crown of Torah. V'cheter Kehuna, the crown of the priesthood. V'cheter Malchut, and the crown of the kingship, right, the monarchy. V'cheter Shem Tov ole al gabehem. And this is where the real teaching comes in, right? There are these three crowns of Torah, of priesthood, of royalty, but the crown of a good name supersedes them all. Okay, so just let that marinate for a second, that anything supersedes the Torah should already be something to tell you that there's something to unpack here. Okay, but here we have really, again, for the rabbis of the Mishnah, the idea of the sort of the three parts of what made up the Jewish people at that time was this idea of the Torah, of the priesthood, and ultimately speaking, of the monarchy, and not necessarily of that time, right? This is sort of retroactive thinking of times in Jewish history where those three things even existed, because when the Mishnah is being written, at that point there is no kehuna, there is no priesthood, and there is no kingship. So really there is only Torah. So the interesting piece of this, though, is not about those three elements, but about what's said at the end, that in fact a Shem Tov, a good name, supersedes them all. In other words, is even more important. So the first thing that has to be unpacked is, what does it mean that there is a crown of Torah, or that there are three crowns? What are they talking about when they're talking about crowns? So the commentator, great commentator, especially on Pirkei Avot, the first place that you go is a rabbi named Ovadia mi Bartanura, which Bartanura, if that doesn't sound like a particularly Jewish last name, is because it's not exactly his last name. It's where he lived. It's where he was a rabbi. He was a rabbi in Italy in, if I remember correctly, I want to say 14th century, early 15th century. And he writes an extensive commentary on Pirkei Avot to help explain exactly these kinds of challenges. So what are these three crowns of Torah about? He says that they are written in the Torah, three things that are written in the Torah that the Torah obligates to treat with honor, right? So that we're meant to honor the Torah itself. We're meant to honor the priesthood, the mechanism by which our ancestors prayed. And we're meant to honor the Davidic line, the kingship, ultimately, that manifests once our ancestors entered the land of Israel. Okay, so here he continues, though, with the most important explanation is, what does that mean, though, that the crown of a good name is somehow more important than all three of these things? So Bartanura explains, whoever has in his hands, right, whoever basically is in possession of good deeds and a good reputation because of his deeds, we have not found a crown for him in the Torah such that one is obligated to honor its bearer. So he points out the fact that there isn't anywhere in the Torah that says a Shem Tov is an important idea or concept, right? If you try to go find a proof text, you're not going to be able to. Whereas if you try to find a proof text for the importance of the Torah, the priesthood, and the monarchy, you will find it in the Torah. And in fact, he gives examples of each of them. But this one exists outside of it. And he says, well, how is it possible then, if the Torah doesn't talk about it, a good name, a Shem Tov, being such a big deal, why does Rabbi Shmuel seem to think that that's the case? What is it based on? He says, because without a Shem Tov, right, without a good reputation, without good deeds that back it up, even if you are a great Torah scholar, our tradition says that if there is a great Torah scholar, learned in Torah, who is a jerk, your job is to go up to them and tell them that they're being a jerk. And I'm not being facetious, I'm being literal. This is what the expectation is of the rabbis. It does not matter how wonderful, incredible, thoughtful a particular rabbi is. If their actions are not acceptable, you have an obligation to call it out. First. Second, the priesthood. It tells us in, Bartanura says in Yoma, in the section of the Talmud that deals with holidays and major moments in time, it says that even in the case of the priesthood, if they're doing good things, if they're acting in the way in which Aaron and his sons were commanded to act when the priesthood was created, good for them. But if they should cease to act in that kind of way, if their behavior changes to the negative, you have an obligation even to challenge the high priest. And thirdly, in the case of the kingship, in the case of the monarchy, even King David, even in the strength of King David, the prophet Nathan goes to David and points out his inadequacies, his challenges. Even King David, who we hold to high regard, is a person with some significant flaws, and he is called out because of them. In other words, even the Torah, even the priesthood, even the monarchy, all of these things also expect a certain kind of level of behavior. And when that level of behavior is not at an acceptable rate, we have an obligation to call it out when we see it in that kind of way. So one of the concerns that I think I have had, and of course I think most of us have had, is not just in the nature of the way that the last 4 years have gone, or in the nature of how the campaign has gone, but simply after the fact that a vote has taken place, to have members of our elected legislatures, let alone the current president of our country, calling into question, calling out the good name of the institution of which gives them power is unacceptable. Unacceptable on every conceivable level. From a Jewish standpoint, from a human standpoint, unacceptable. We may not like the outcome of votes. We may be unhappy with who wins them. But in this country, we have a fundamental basis for everything. So you can replace the words Torah, priesthood, and monarchy with things like the presidency, the legislature, the judicial branch of this country. All of them are essential. All of them are important. Every one of them is necessary and deserving of kavod, of respect. But if in the end, the institution that gives them power is disrespected in the public by the people who have been given that power, then it is unacceptable. That is ultimately what Rabbi Shimon is warning us about, is to say that we cannot rest on institutional ideas, no matter how powerful they are, no matter how important they are, if we undermine them at the same time, if we question their good name. What he's teaching us is that none of these things can exist without a steadfast reputation, one that is above reproach. That good name is something that has to be earned and respected by all. And when it is torn down, it tears down everything with it. That is something that each and every one of us, regardless of policy or position or politics or party, none of those things matter. But when we have a situation like we have right now, where with no basis, we are dealing with what we are seeing on a literally an hourly basis of calling out the institution of our election itself and the capacity for it to be free and fair is something that must disturb each and every one of us. There's not always an easy path as to what to do about it. But if you are not disturbed, this is the text to consider this weekend, to consider this Shabbat, to think about deeply. It is unacceptable, but it's not inevitable. It is unacceptable, but it is not inevitable. No one person in this country has the power to take away the good name of what this country was based upon and founded for, and what we all aspire to be. And I think it is essential right now that in any opportunity that we have to challenge, to push back against this kind of rhetoric, is not just something to do, it is a mitzvah. When I talked about last week that perhaps the concept of voting itself is not a mitzvah, challenging authority when it is perverted is. If you were unsure of it before, I can emphatically tell you now it is. Every one of us has a mitzvah, an obligation, a requirement to challenge what we are seeing right now. The good name of this country and everything it represents is at stake. It is not about the outcome of the election in this case. It is about the principle of it. It is about the basis of it. It is about the values that underpin it. And it is heartbreaking to see what is unfolding. I don't have a nechemta at the end of this sermon tonight, but I do have a charge, which is to say, however things pan out over the next days, weeks, months, I don't think there's any question that we as a country have a lot of work to do on a lot of things. Okay? Each one of us has a role to play, and we really need to be in that mindset right now. And while I don't always suggest that Judaism has every answer or should tell us how to do every single thing, I really believe that Rabbi Shimon is speaking to us across the generations tonight. And he is telling us that we are the ones that must protect the good name of this country and what it stands for. So with that, I certainly wish you a emphatic Shabbat Shalom, and I appreciate your willingness to allow me to speak from my heart tonight. So again, Shabbat Shalom, and we'll turn now to page. It just turned blurry. I promise. That was not intentional. Perhaps maybe a little helpful. We'll turn to page 586, second paragraph down, as we sing together Aleinu L'Shabeach. And while I didn't intend it to be this way, what does Aleinu L'Shabeach mean? Aleinu means it's on us. Okay, it's on us. That's the responsibility. So join with me again, page 586 at the bottom of the page. עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. We're now on page 591. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. Now invite those who are in mourning and those observing yahrzeit, if you so choose, to rise at home as we first remember those who have passed in our community in recent months. Miles Ambrose, Nancy Fisher, Saul Fisher, Edwin Friedman, Sandra Friedman, Lucy Gladstone, Lois Herr, Philip Idone, Laura Kurz, Marge Judith Parcher, Steve Popkin, Vera Shaps, Lisa Schneidman, Norma Small, Marjorie Weinberg Berman, and Marvin Weiss. We also mark the yahrzeits that occurred during the last week for Rose Edelberg, Irving Bass, Caroline Brevitz, Betty Cutler, Fenimore Fisher, Nelson Friedman, Mildred Garner, Tilly Gastworth, Marilyn Glass, Irving Gostin, Philip Haber, Morris Halpern, Dorothy Hipsch, Eli Kelman, Edith LaBelle, Sandra Matloff, Anita Mello, Marion Raff, Jack Raich, Irving Rice, Albert Sackner, Morton Schoenbach, Edith Schussman, Herman Schussman, Maurice Sklar, Ruth Stein, Estelle Steinberg, Irene Treistman, Harry Warter, Joseph Wiener, and Saul Bader. If you're thinking of anyone this evening we didn't mention and you'd like to mention their names, certainly please feel free to add them to the chat, as the mourners will join me on page 598 in reciting the mourners Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayichon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, b'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah mevarach le'alam le'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yitalal Shemei d'kudsha b'richu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechamata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shalom Rabbah min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Zichronam livracha, may every one of their memories be for a blessing. Okay, if you're standing, you can certainly be seated at home. And Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Sorry, I got a little fired up there before, but you know your rabbi can get a little emotional from time to time. But it is a wonderful Shabbat. It's wonderful to see all of you, and it doesn't end here. We have a lot of wonderful things coming up through the rest of Shabbat and through the rest of the week. So the first is I'm going to front load it because I don't want to forget. After some consideration with all of you, and I think I'm going to put it on gallery view so I can see everybody. Rather than having a separate Oneg Shabbat afterwards with a different Zoom and all of that, we have finally simplified things. It will just be here. Marsha's excited. It will just be on this Zoom as soon as the service is over. But the one important thing that I will tell you is the streaming part will stop. So certainly then it becomes more just us in a Zoom. So you don't have to feel obliged to stay on. If you'd like to, we of course would love to spend a little more time kibitzing and celebrating Shabbat and perhaps talking about some contemporary issues that may be on people's minds. But otherwise, just to say that there will no longer be a separate Oneg Zoom. We're just all together. So hopefully that's good news to all of you. The second is to join us for Shabbat services tomorrow morning, starting at 10 o'clock, which will be live streamed from the sanctuary on our website, on YouTube, and on Facebook. And at 12 o'clock, we will have our Torah study, which, it being the first Shabbat of the month, is not just any Torah study. It's our Torah study facilitated using the Torah Women's Commentary, and this month being facilitated by Judy Klinghoffer. And it's awesome. She's already well prepared, and she's very humble, so she doesn't like it when I build things up. But I'll just say Kurt Vonnegut may or may not be involved in some of the discussions. So Torah study and Kurt Vonnegut, I think, go naturally well together. So that's a good pitch. Please join us for Torah study. All are welcome. No background necessary. Just knowing the Zoom. If you need any help, any questions, please do let me know. Other things coming up this week: Hebrew School on Zoom at 4 o'clock on Monday. The Social Justice Committee will have its regular virtual meeting at 5 o'clock. At 7:30 on Monday evening, we'll just be having an open town hall, an opportunity for us to just kind of check in as a community, to ask some questions of our board, of myself, to just try to make sure that we're maintaining that kind of connection with each other around important issues. So again, that's 7:30. Just remember that you do have to just register for it, and you'll get the link sent to you. Reminder again about my regular weekly class on Wednesdays, Abraham, Joshua, Heschel, and the Prophets, which again is at 12 o'clock on Wednesday. There is no B'nai Mitzvah class this Wednesday because it is Veterans Day and things are closed down. On Friday morning, my regular 9 o'clock Pirkei Avot class, as you got a little bit of a taste of tonight, but it's really a wonderful class, so please do join us. And it's not too late. You can always jump in. And also just a reminder that next Saturday, it'll be the first time in a while we'll get a chance to see him, but we're bringing Keelan out. He's going to meet me socially distanced here in the sanctuary. I'm going to do Havdalah, and then he'll be able to play on his piano and sing in a high quality microphone so that you can hear him. He's very excited about it. We're working on trying to figure out how to get him back in the fold a little bit. It's a little complicated, but at least in this case, we could safely bring him in, bring him out, and let him do it. So that will be live 7 o'clock next Saturday evening. Like I said, we'll start with Havdalah, and then we'll just let him go wild and have a good time. So again, that is next week, and that'll be live streamed on our website and everything to enjoy. Also a reminder that Wednesday, November 18th, the 7 o'clock film on Frida Kahlo will be screened, which includes also an interview with the project's executive producer and director, as well as being led by our program chair, Toby Spitz. Just remember, again, that requires registration. Also, in celebration of Jewish Book Month, this would be 2 Fridays from now, I'm going to build my sermon around one of the chosen award winners from last year. So there's information on the website about that. Hopefully you'll find it interesting, but we like to acknowledge that. And also to note that thanks to Ruth Joseph, who's brought the book group, what normally happens only during the summers, is making a appearance here during the winter months. So we're very excited about that. And of course, also a reminder of our regular annual Interfaith Thanksgiving service, which will happen again this year. That is on the Sunday right before Thanksgiving. I think it's the 21st at 3 o'clock. And again, it will be on Zoom this year, but we're really, wanted to keep up with that wonderful tradition of remaining connected to our non-Jewish friends in the area and making sure that we are celebrating the seasons together with the right kind of orientation and perspective. And so I think that is everything on my end. Myra, you want to just jump in here? Hold on, I gotta just give you the power to unmute, and then you can unmute. At least I think you can. Yes? No? I'll tell you what, Myra. Oh, there you go.
I got it. I just wanted to remind everybody that there's a new Musar series starting on Monday evening, on the 16th, November 16th. At 7 o'clock. I'm going to start for the next 12 months. If anybody's interested, get in touch with me. We'd love to have you join.
Great. Thank you, Myra. And Noel's giving the thumbs up. That is a vote of approval, which is great. So with that, I wish everybody a Shabbat Shalom. We're going to turn it back to Cantor Lauren. I'll give us a closing song, and then we'll do Kiddush. And then I said, like, anybody wants to stick on, we'll stick around for Oneg Shabbat. So Cantor, it's all you. you, Cantor Lauren. And I'll invite anyone who has grape juice, wine, or something sacred around that you can make sacred, I should say. You can join me on page 123 for, 122 for our Kiddush. 123, sorry, 123. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon inchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila lemikra'e kodesh Zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim, ki banu v'acharta, ve'otanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, ve'shabbat kodshecha, ve'ahava u'ratzon inchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh HaShabbat. Amen. Chaim, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. You can now unmute yourselves, and I'm going to turn off our streaming.